Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and something happened. So I thought I was being really cool by basically scheduling to watch and review all the movies that I was going to do as a all-night commentary on that failed all-night commentary with the Class of 42 and the I Spit on Your Grave remake trilogy. But the thing that I thought about was that, wait a second, those movies were all movies that I picked out because I clicked onto the Tubies section where it said leaving soon. And so all those titles are gone. So I thought that was pretty funny. And number two, I'd really like to do that trilogy as a commentary. You know, it feels like if I'm going to do a rape movie, it'd be more entertaining to probably do it as a commentary rather than a straightforward review. So I thought I should get some of these ranking videos out of the way. You know, I have a couple that I could do. I'll probably still watch Kiss of the Vampires on the last day of this month, but that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4. I think like 4 other ranking videos I can do, or just reviews. I was going to review the Guardians holiday special, but I kind of like to review that in December, you know, because it looks like a Christmas episode. So this video is going to be the top worst and best monsters of the X-Files. So I was not able to find 10 that were really bad, so I just have like 8, I believe, and then I do have 10 good monsters. So let's start off with the bad ones. A lot of people know the episode Tesos das Bichos, and one of the funny things about the episode is that the villains in the episode are cats. It's literally just a swarm of zombie cats, and although it would be pretty terrifying in real life if you got swarmed by cats, you know, because they'd all claw you to death, on the show it is pretty bizarre. And I mean, at one point you can even see Scully, and she's like throwing a dummy, and it looks like a Halloween decoration that they bought at the Spirit Halloween store. It just, they don't look good. I do think the episode is kind of overly shit on. Like, I do think that, you know, they had a good idea. You know, it's just a typical idea of, like, you take away a cursed item from its place, and so then you get all these cursed beings sent after you. But the way the episode was executed was just unbearable. The next monster is Charles Manson Jr. in Underneath. So this is an episode about this fat guy, and it starts off really creepy, where he goes to this family's house, and it's like somebody is controlling him or some sort of entity, and it's going to make him kill these people, or it kills these people, and then it frames him. But then we find out in the episode that actually it's this weird religious thing where he doesn't want to acknowledge that he committed sins himself. So he created this fucking creature, entity, person who looks like a fucking bargain bin early 2000s Rob Zombie movie Charles Manson character. And it's just complete trash. It's so underwhelming because, you know, he really seems like a good person, and you kind of wish that he was innocent and that there was some sort of other monster, and but all they do is just have a guy who looks like Charles Manson without a shirt on. And it's just so not scary in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of stupid. And the next monster, this is the one I immediately thought of. So there's an episode in season 9 called Daemonicus. It's another demon episode. And this one is particularly bad because the monster, it literally looks like a guy in like a hoodie, and he's got a Halloween mask on, and it's like a bargain bin demon mask, and he's just going around killing people so that he can spell the word Daemonicus. It's just so dumb. And so, definitely, I mean, immediately, that's what I thought of. Immediately. That's how cheap it looked. That's how shitty it looked. It was not a good monster. The next one is the green goo pixel monster in Medusa. This is an episode that was very boring, and I actually fell asleep watching. I don't even really remember what happened. They're like in an underground subway, and there's this monster, and it's I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, and I just thought of one I could add because I know people will give me shit for it too, but I don't care. So that's like 9. So it was just a cheap looking monster in Medusa. It, as I said, it looks like pixels. It looks like, you know those cheesy 90s movie effects where they have the pixely goo type stuff? You know, that's what this looks like. And it just doesn't look good. It's too bad because Medusa, come on. You know, who doesn't want a good horror episode with Medusa in it? So, the next bad monster is Orison. Now, this one particularly pissed me off because the first episode, Irresistible, it is one of my favorite episodes ever. As a kid, I would go to the library and I would rent certain episodes of X-Files, and one of the episodes I would rent over and over again was Irresistible, because I really loved, it felt like Silence of the Lambs meets X-Files, and he was such a good bad guy, and for a while I actually mistook him for Dexter, and I actually thought somehow that like Dexter was like a spin-off or something. It was really funny, you know, but that's what would happen when I was a kid, was I would get just all these weird thoughts about things. But what's really retarded is the fact that Irresistible, the whole point of the episode is that humans can be monsters too. And I know that that's cheesy and pretentious sounding, but it's true. And he was a really good monster. And then later on, they actually reveal that, oh no, wait, he's a real monster as well. And he's this cheesy demon person. It's like a red demon. He kind of looks like what if they made a really dark, edgy advertisement for Red Hots or something, like an 80s commercial for Red Hots with the X-Files. That's what he looks like. He doesn't look scary at all. The next bad monster is the quote-unquote Loch Ness Monster in Quagmire. This episode was really disappointing because... Oh, and I just remembered. Okay, we have 10 monsters. Yeah, we have 10 monsters. Okay. So this episode, it was really, really good. I loved Quagmire until Scully's dog dies for no reason. And then they do this whole pretentious thing. The whole episode is just filled with pretentiousness, constantly like spelling out the meaning of the episode through the dialogue. So you have Mulder and Scully, and they're sitting on a boat together, and they're both like telling each other their character motivations, and then they're talking about how like myths don't exist or something. It's really weird. And it turns out the Loch Ness Monster is an alligator or something. It's really dumb, really anticlimactic and disappointing. But then at the end of the episode, they literally undermine their own point, because then at the end of the episode they show the Loch Ness Monster for real. And it's like, oh, well, that whole episode was pointless. The next bad monster is Leonard Betts. Now, I know that this one is controversial because a lot of people love this episode. I didn't really like it as much. You know, this was one of the ones that I thought was kind of overrated based on how X-Files fans rated it. Like, they thought this episode was a masterpiece or something. It was okay. It just felt like the whole episode, I mean, because spoilers, he's this monster who can smell people's organs so that then he can eat them or something. And he has this thing where he can heal himself, and you know, he can chop off his limbs and he'll survive, and that part's pretty cool. But basically the whole episode is around how at the end he can smell that Scully has cancer, so he stops attacking her because, you know, he doesn't want to eat a cancerous organ. So that's basically the whole point of the episode. You know, so I thought that I mean, he's not terrible. I mean, he's probably the best one out of this list. It's just I needed a group that I could talk about that stood out to me as like, they could have been better. Now I will blow your guys' mind. Orison again in Irresistible. The episode I just talked about, how much I liked it. It was really queer how much they emphasized that humans can be monsters. You know, it was so heavy-handed, the way that they're just like, humans can be monsters, humans can be monsters, humans can be monsters. And it's like, okay, we get it. We know that this guy's a monster. Okay, like that, they're still not a monster technically, and so, like, you know, like really not a good choice with that. So I just think that's kind of stupid. And then the next one is the Golem in Kadish, or Kaddish, I don't know how to say it. This episode was a really big missed opportunity. It's the only Jewish culture-centered episode in the X-Files, and I was really looking forward to like getting a look into like Jewish folklore and like a Jewish type of monster like golems, and I was really excited. And instead what I got was like this really average, mediocre episode with a really boring looking golem. I mean, I can barely even remember what he looked like. It looked kind of like paper mache, and so it just was not as good as it could have been, unfortunately. The next bad monster is Burt Reynolds in Improbable. This is one like with Orison and Irresistible, where it's not necessarily the fact that I didn't like him, it's the fact that I didn't like what they were doing with him. Like, there's this weird thing in the episode at the end where they pull back from the city and they show that, like, all the buildings in the sky, all the buildings together looks like Burt Reynolds' face, which is basically, like, suggesting that in the X-Files universe, Burt Reynolds is God. And I just thought that was too goofy. It totally ruined the episode because the rest of the episode was really good. And you're thinking, like, ooh, this is kind of a cool character. He's some sort of a ghost. He's some sort of like an entity that can just, you know, he's like just cruising through the world of X-Files and he knows everything and, you know, he's cool. But then fucking this weird thing at the end, like they don't even really like tell you, it's just kind of implied, and so I didn't like that. And then my last monster for the worst monsters is the monster in Scully and Mulder Meet the Were-Monster, season 10. Now, this episode I despised. I thought it was so annoying and so dull. There was only like one or two jokes in the whole episode that I laughed at. Like, the whole episode is basically this guy giving a monologue about, like, I didn't do the murders because even though I'm a monster, and then he goes through, like, his entire day, and it's just so long and just overly drawn out, and he's the monster purposefully looks as cheap as possible for, like, comedic effect. I don't know, I don't like that, because I feel like if even if it's a comedy, there should still be some sort of like a real feel to it, where it's like he's still like a scary monster, but instead he's like this goofy monster. You can just tell that it's like a guy in a suit. I wasn't a fan of this monster. I really did not like this monster. Like, they had this thing at the end too, where, like, I think he hugs Mulder as a monster or something. Really, really queer. So now for the best monsters. I was able to find 10 of these pretty easily. So the first one was the snake person in Signs and Wonders. This is a trash episode. I mean, season 7 of the X-Files is pretty bad. But there was this really cool part at the end of the episode where they show that the bad guy got away and he's like part snake person. And it was just a really cool twist ending, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, that could be a pretty cool bad guy. So I thought he was one to give a good mention, since the episode was a pile of shit. And then the next good monster was the main cyborg guy in Salvage. This was a very average episode. It's just a typical, this guy was wronged, and so he's getting revenge. And the main guy in this, he's like a cyborg. He's part cyborg, part human. And what's really cool is that the whole episode, he's falling apart. Like, he's just completely degrading, and he takes a lot of damage, even more so than the Terminator in the Terminator. And it's really cool effects that they do in the episode. Like, there's the scene in the bathroom, which looks really, really good. And so I really thought this was actually a pretty good monster. He was even though the episode was dull, I remembered that I liked this monster. The next good monster is Badla. Now, this episode is widely despised. For some reason, I thought it was one of the best episodes of the series. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a classic. It was basically, if you know the actor Deep Roy, I think his name is, the guy who played the Oompa Loompas in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He plays this shit-covered hobo demon who rolls himself around on a cart because he doesn't have any legs. And I thought he was incredibly creepy. I mean, he's able to transform himself into people too. He's able to, he crawls up inside people's asses, and then he bursts out of their chests like chest bursters from Aliens. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was scary. He was really pretty scary. Like, he was evil. I mean, at one point, he stands up for this bullied kid, and you think, oh, maybe he's a good monster. Maybe he just wants to kill bad people. Like, at the beginning of the episode, he killed a guy who might have been a rich jackass. But then there's a twist where it's like, no, he then goes after the bullied kid's parents and kills them. And it's like, oh wow, he's not a good guy. He's not a good monster. Yeah, he was scary. The next monsters were the gargoyles and grotesque. This is another episode I felt was underappreciated. I did find it boring, but I really loved the mood of the episode. It was very gothic. It reminded me of Tim Burton's Batman, and the gargoyles were pretty good. I mean, from what I can remember, let's look them up. It was a really pretty dark episode. Yeah, it was a good monster. I think it was... Yeah, it was a good monster, definitely. Like, the whole episode had this, like, blue look to it. It was very, very good. I liked it a lot. And then it had a really dark ending where it's like the gargoyles possess people, and so at the end they possess this good guy, and he gets put in prison forever, and it's pretty dark. It's pretty sad and pretty dark. The next monster is the monster in Hungary. Basically what they do in this episode, they do something really clever, where they use like bulimia is like an allegory for monsters, and so, or like a metaphor, and so the monster in this episode, he kind of looks like he's in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he has to disguise himself to look human, and he just can't stop killing, and he really wants to stop. He doesn't like killing people, and it's kind of like this eating disorder metaphor episode, and it's a really good episode, really good monster, in my opinion. The next good monster was the satanic substitute teacher in Die Hand, Die Verletzt. This woman was terrifying. I mean, I know that she's been in a lot of other stuff where she's just been like a sidekick character. Like she was in The Blacklist. And so now whenever I think about her, I think of The Blacklist. But she was scary. And I used to rent this episode from the library as a kid. And this character, she would give me nightmares. And I thought this was a genuinely scary episode. So I have to tip my hat off to her. And then next up, the monsters in Detour. This is an extremely underrated episode. I could have put this in the top 10 of the series, to be honest. Probably. These monsters were like Predator, and they were exactly like Predator. If you guys like the Predator movies, like it's straight up like Predator, and there is this stupid twist where it turns out that they're supposed to be Mayans or something, like ancient Mayan people, and they just adapted to the environment, but that's fucking retarded. But they're really cool monsters, very creepy. They have these beady little eyes and just really gross. And what's really cool is they blend in with the environment, so they look like moss, and that's pretty scary. So next up is the monster and the host. Now this is obviously one that people talk about a lot, and for good reason. This monster is disgusting. I mean, as soon as you see his face, you're like, ugh. It is such a creepy monster. It's a gross monster too. I mean, it's like a sewer monster. It's like a parasite that is the size of a human, and it is so disgusting. I mean, and and you just think like even like about getting bit by one, like like really, really gross. And what's even cooler is like, even though they do defeat one of them, at the end of the episode it shows there's more of them, and all I could think of was like, it would be such a scary episode if like Mulder and Scully got trapped in the sewer with one of these monsters or something. Like if they had like a bottle episode where it all took place in the sewer, that would be terrifying. So yeah, like, ugh. Even though I know it's fake, it's still that gross. That's how good it is. Probably the best one on this list. I mean, I can't even argue with that. The next best monster is Eugene Toombs from Squeeze. Now, this is a monster where he looks like a person kind of, but with yellow eyes, and he is really terrifying. He can squeeze himself into small spaces, and he eats liver or something, and he uses the bile to eat in the winter time when he when he hibernates, and he like builds this ugh. I mean, he is a really creepy monster, and what's even creepier about him is that he blends into society, and he's been around for like hundreds of years. And they show these cool like historical photos of him, which reminded me a lot of like a Phantasm, where you see the tall man in the past. The last monster that I will talk about is the monsters in Folie à Deux. This is an extremely good episode, definitely one of the best ones, and it's even scarier because it's hard to see the monsters because they disguise themselves as people, and they do this thing where they make certain people aware that they're real, and then the rest of the world can't even see them. And so one person, you'll think that they're crazy, and you'll think, no, those monsters aren't real, and then boom, you see that they are. And there's this really cool story where this guy that works there, he thinks that his boss is one of these monsters, and so he does this really intense shooting situation where he takes the people hostage, and he's going to execute the people who are the monsters, quote unquote, and then the monsters turn other people into zombies. And it to me, it's sort of a parallel for, something to do with like corporate, zombies and stuff like that, which I thought was great as well. And then what happens is that the guy shows Mulder, and Mulder is the only other person who knows, and then the shooter, he gets killed by the police, the SWAT team, and so you have everyone else is like moved on, and Mulder is the only one, and he's like trying to justify this shooter's actions, which is like insane. He's like this, it feels like a real world situation where he was just an employee who went crazy. But no, he was right. These people were monsters, and they were very creepy. They have these like wings, and they look like giant like bug people, very underrated monsters. So that's about it. I also made this really hilarious video last night. I'm still editing it. I don't really know where I should post it, but basically what I did was I went onto this app where you can video chat, or where you can chat in these video rooms, and I trolled all these people, and it was really hilarious, and I screen recorded all the interactions. So I'm definitely going to be posting that on like a different channel. It's really hilarious. And so if you'd be interested in watching that, then put your request in the comments, and maybe I'll link you to the video, because it's definitely not a video that can go on Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, because it's not related to the channel. But I know that some of you might be interested, because it's really hilarious. I mean, some of the interactions from just like saying one little thing. that's like just a harmless thing. You know, people just like go insane. It's hilarious. So please like this video, comment, tell me what your favorite and least favorite monsters in X-Files are. I will say, I was kind of disappointed with this list. I felt like looking back, they definitely could have put more effort into making some cool practical monsters. You know, it feels like a lot of the episodes had to do with I don't know, like, that's the weird thing is that, like, I felt like there should have been more. Like, I felt like I was like, really? This is all the monsters? I mean, some of them, like, you have to stretch to even qualify them as monsters. You know, you can't really say 100% that's a monster. You know, so it was really kind of a shock. And I think especially in the new revival, instead of focusing on politics and on making shitty ass shit, they should have made some cool practical effects monsters. You know, let the special effects guys have their spotlight. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest X-Files videos. There won't be very many more, but there will be a few. So goodbye everybody, see you.